Proper planning from the outset is really crucial. It will make it safer and can often make it easier. Sometimes you can find a way of doing it which means you don't have to work at heights at all. Completely remove the risk of falling. It really is the first thing to think about.
I've built a lot of houses in my time. We used to do all the roof work in situ, guys balancing on the top of walls, guiding timbers and trusses into place. We had scaffolding and crash boards, but it was still a risk. One day it occurred to me we didn't need to do it like this, so now we do a lot of pre-assembly before it's lifted into place. It means there's much less risk of anyone falling. We just thought, do we need to do the job like this? And the answer was no, we can do it on the ground.
We do as much work on the ground as possible, prefabricating structures and so on. We have to decorate the fascias and it's much easier to paint than before we put them up.
Think about whether you really need to work at height, or if there's another way of doing the job. A lot of the time it will be unavoidable, so you have to look at the risks involved and minimise them. Find the safest way of doing it.
If there is work to do off the ground, it doesn't matter what it is, I always give it a lot of thought. I look at the risks and work out ways to reduce them. I may not be the head of a large operation, but I am the person in charge and I have a legal obligation to do it. It's all in the construction regs, so there's no getting away from it.
I look at what's got to be done and what the risks are. I look for dangers. Well, I've got to take precautions so people aren't at risk. I look at the job and ask myself, could someone fall? Now the temptation is to worry about that when you're working high up, but even at low levels you must think, could someone fall and injure themselves? If you came off at the first lift, landed badly, you do a lot of damage. You tend to forget that. Broken legs, arms, so on. You could be off work for months.
I learnt the hard way. A bloke got killed on a site I was working on because we didn't do things properly. We were replacing some gutters, working off ladders. Totally unsafe when you're working at the top, handling big lengths of guttering. I should have thought about the risks. A ladder was completely wrong. I should have thought about a scaffold, something with some stability to work from.
It's not just the obvious risks. On a large site, things keep moving and changing, so I've got to have eyes in the back of my head. Service shafts and lifts often get overlooked. People might not be working there at the moment, but it's still a risk that needs to be dealt with. Believe it or not, people do fall down them.
There's a straightforward routine that applies to every job on site. Look for the hazards and decide if anyone could get hurt. Weigh up the risks, the chances of an accident happening. Then look at what precautions you've already got or if you need more. Make a note of it and keep an eye on things. Review the situation because things may change.
Every operation, or every significant operation, should be assessed to find out the hazards and the control measures that we put in place to eliminate or reduce those hazards.
You get a generic risk assessment and you can make it more specific to your job. You can literally walk guys around your job, show them the areas of risk and educate the guys as you walk around.
We do a risk assessment and method statement, so everything is constantly being monitored to make sure it's safe, basically.
You may know about the risks, but how do you know which are the best precautions to take?
There's always the temptation to use whatever you've got handy. You don't go to the trouble of getting the right kit in. That's where we went wrong, and why Pete ended up dead.
We both knew the dangers of working on roofs like that. We just didn't think. We could have used a cherry picker and done all the work from underneath. Getting the right kit and being safe, it's all part of the planning of the job. It must be included in the costing. So I look at what's got to be done, what the risks are, and I work it out from there. Of course, in an ideal world, we wouldn't do the job at height. We'd find another way. But most of the time, it's not an option. So I look at it in stages. I start with the safest method first. If that's not right, move on to the next safest option, and I carry on till I find something that works. Now the starting point is to try and provide a secure working platform. A stable area to work from. It's got good edge protection to stop them falling. Scaffold. mobile platform, cherry picker, you know, that sort of thing. Well, it's got to be up to the job, strong enough, big enough. Portable scaffold tower won't really be any good if you're laying blocks. It's great for light work and if you want to have something you can move around, but you can't always get a platform where you need it. Now, if you're laying floor panels or roof sheets, you can't really protect the working edges, so you may have to think of alternatives. Some protection to catch them if they fall. Nets, bags, crash decks, something to catch them, which is fine until you get the situation where you can't use them for whatever reason. Then you may have to start thinking about using a harness. It's all about finding the safest, sensible solution. You work your way through the options till you find the right one, and not just the easiest, but the safest, and the one that suits the job.
There is a clear legal requirement that the most reasonably practicable steps must be taken to minimise any risk. You have to provide the safest solution given the constraints of the job. It starts with fall prevention, providing a safe working platform with guardrails and tow boards to stop people falling. Then, collective fall arrest devices, something to minimise the effect if someone should fall, like nets and airbags. After that, you may have to consider personal fall protection systems, like safety harnesses.
Steel frame buildings are typical of a lot of our work. We use cherry pickers when we can when we're erecting the frame. It means bolts can be fitted from a safe platform rather than having to climb about on the beams. Once that's up, we sling nets as the floors go in and move them up as we go. We have looked at airbags, but it's still quite a long way if you fell, and nets can be slung tight to the work area, so you'd hardly drop at all. We put protection on all the exterior edges and cover any voids or holes. We want to make sure there isn't anywhere that people can fall. When it comes to the cladding, we might use scissor lift, mast climber, scaffold, depends on the constraints of the site and the structure.
This approach to working is known as the hierarchy of control. It enables you to follow a set pattern which should help you select the most appropriate safety measures and reduce the risk of an accident.
I started using the hierarchy of control a couple of years ago. I got some leaflets off the safety guy which have helped a lot. They've made me think a lot harder about my safety measures. And I think it's improved the business and made me more efficient because we're using the right equipment rather than using what we've got already.
A thing that I've learnt is to look at the schedule and see what's the best time to do a job. Fitting the burglar alarms used to be one of the last things. Stick up a ladder and away you go. But we've brought it forward so that we get it done while the scaffold is still up. That way we don't have a bloke working at the top of a ladder. It's so obvious, but it never occurred to us.
If you can avoid working at heights in the first place, then do. And then secondly, you need to look at putting in the risk measures and just basically trying to prevent the accidents from happening.